Good evening and welcome back to the Nilvah Nexus. Hi, everybody. James, the Idol Smasher, here with my co-host, Rosalie Jordan. Good evening, everybody.
Shalom, y'all.
Rosalie, shalom. Good to see you. We're going to keep doing some Talmud
Good
this
to
week,
see
aren't
you. See you too.
we?
Again, yeah.
Yep. Okay. We do this every Thursday night. It's a Torah chat normally where we get together and discuss the parsha and all things biblical and anybody's invited to take part in the study. We're doing something a little different past few weeks here. We're reading out of the Talmud. And spooky T word. We are reading English. So at Sefaria.com, in fact, or not Sefaria.com. Let me put up the Sefaria.org. Let me put up the link there. You can follow along at home. There should be a link whether you're watching on YouTube or Facebook. If you're on Twitter, just go to this link right here. Just Sefaria.org and then Avodah Zarah. And you can find it from there. I mean, it should take you to it.
Talmud first. Got to go to Talmud.
Okay.
And then scroll down to Avodah Zarah. It's on the left-hand side.
And there is a link if you want to join in and read, if you're fairly familiar with Judaism and you want to take part in helping us read this thing so we don't go hoarse half the way through. We are more than welcome. You're more than welcome to join in there. And any comments, questions, complaints, suggestions, will be at jamestheidolsmasher at gmail.com. Also, torrentfriendspodcast.com. And sadly, the channel's not there anymore. So we are on my Twitter account, which I'm going to start using now that we have comedies allowed again. So you can go to @theidolsmasher. It's my page on Twitter. Not a whole lot going on there. However, I'm going to start putting these weekly broadcasts up. So also, the Orphans of Avraham group on Facebook. You'll get updates on what we're doing here and elsewhere. Parsha update. Of course, Rosalie posts that every week. And let's see. Let's get into it. We are on. This is Avodah Zarah. This is after the Second Temple. This is when this particular Talmud was compiled. It's in the section of damages. So what we're doing is learning how a Jew walks justly in a world of Avodah Zarah, of foreign worship, of non-Torah-based monotheism, ethical monotheism. So we're learning how the staunch monotheists, if you will, the Torah-based monotheists, how they are to deal with Gentiles. Now you're going to hear the word Gentile, but we're not referring to you and I. We're not referring to the average Westerner as we know today. Okay, well, if you got your pagans going on, but I don't think anybody's doing human sacrifices anymore. We're referring to what non-Jews were before the Roman Empire. So there are all kinds of different colors and all kinds of shades of pagan and polytheism and all kinds of different things. And some of the practices weren't that great. So when you hear the word Gentile, which we're reading here, I want to make sure that it's not speaking about the non-Jew in general. If you want to know why I would say that, as far as Islam goes, a rabbi can pray in a mosque, okay? And as far as Christianity is concerned, you think Gentile, well, it is said, I think it was the Rambam who said that there is a recognition of God. When a Christian hears God, they think of the God of Israel. There's some issues with Yachka and all that good stuff, but there is a common ground for it. And that's kind of what I want to get across. It's not the same. We're talking a long time ago in a whole different world. So when you hear that, don't get upset, because we're going to learn about how we are, or how Israel anyway is to walk among the Gentiles, the non-Jew. So we're on 16b, which I just accidentally scrolled down to 15a. So give me a second here, and I'll get to where I'm going. I'll start us
16b.
off. 16b. Or 16a, I'm sorry. I apologize. If I can just get to the right place. There we go, 16a. Again, this is an English translation from Sefaria.org. You're welcome to read along. If it were possible to avoid selling produce to Gentiles without incurring their animosity, indeed it would be prohibited to sell them. Since limiting sales to Gentiles to such an extent would cause great harm, it is only prohibited to sell them shields. There are in no. Let me. You're gonna get my scroll working here. There are those who say, with regard to shields, this is the reason that one is not allowed to sell them to Gentiles, as when their use of their weapon is finished in battle, they will kill with these shields. And accordingly, the reason that some say in the Beretia that one may sell shields to them is because they maintain that it is not a concern. As with their weapon is finished, they flee, rather than use their shield as a weapon. Rav Naaman says that Rav Bar Avu says the halakha is in accordance with the opinion cited, as some say. Rav Ada Bar Ahava says one may not sell blocks of iron to Gentiles. What is the reason? It is because they forge weapons from them. The Gemara asks, if so, then even hoes and axes should not be sold to them, as they too can be used to forge weapons. Rav Zevid said in response, the ruling of Rav Ada Bar Ava was stated with regard to Indian iron, which is a superior quality and used only for crafting weapons. This we're talking about Hindustan at the time. The Gemara clarifies, as for the fact that nowadays we do sell all weapons, Rav Ashi said, we sell the weapons to the Persians who protect us. That sounds familiar, only not necessarily Persians today, but the Mishnah teaches one may not sell to Gentiles calves or foals. It is taught in a Bereishia that Rabbi Yehuda permits the sale of a damaged animal because it is incapable of being cured and living normally. The sages said to him, but if one mates her, does she not bear offspring? And since one can mate her, and she will bear offspring, the Gentile will come to leave her in his possession, and the Jews who see the animal in their possession of the Gentile will assume that it is permitted to sell large livestock to Gentiles. Rabbi Yehuda said to them in response, when she bears offspring, I will agree to be concerned about such a possibility. The Gemara notes, apparently, Rabbi Yehuda holds that a damaged animal does not accept a male, i.e., since its legs are broken, it cannot participate in intercourse. Excuse me. The Mishnah also teaches that Ben Beteria permits the sale of a horse to a Gentile. The Gemara notes that it is taught in a Bereishia, Ben Beteria permits the sale of a horse because the Gentile uses it for performing an act for which one is not liable to bring a sin offering, as riding a horse is not prohibited by Torah law. Therefore, there is no reason to prohibit its sale due to the concern that a Gentile might use it for prohibited action. When we're saying things like prohibited action, the reason why we're concerned about selling animals to the heathens at the time, and heathen in the modern say, when we think Gentile in this sense, we're thinking heathen today, is because we don't want to sell them something they could offer to their idol. Or use in a profane way that would break the 7 laws, one of the 7 laws, any one of them, particularly, causing harm to an animal, eating the flesh torn from a living animal. So, and there are certain mating practices you have to, you have to go through when you take on owning an animal. There are certain ways that's done the right way, the righteous way to bring up an animal. So what we're talking about here is why we don't want to why we wouldn't want to sell certain animals, like the white rooster we talked about. Those were often used at the time for offerings and pagan practices. And this is some dark stuff too. And Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi prohibits its sale due to 2 reasons. One is because it has the status of a weapon, as horses are used in battle. And the other one is because it has the status of large livestock. The Gemara asks, The Gemara asks, granted, there is a reason to say that a horse has the status of a weapon, as a horse is taught to kill by striking down enemy troops. But what is the relevance of the observation that it has the status of large livestock? It has already been explained that a horse is used for riding, not for performing acts that are prohibited on Shabbat. Rabbi Yochanan says, when it becomes elderly and is no longer suitable for use in battle, one makes it grind with a millstone, and therefore it will in fact be used to perform prohibited labor on the Sabbath. Nevertheless, Rabbi Yochanan says, the halacha is in accordance with the opinion of Ben Betira, that it is permitted to sell a horse to Gentiles. A dilemma was raised before the sages with regard to an ox of a fattener, which has been fattened for slaughter. What is the halacha? Let the dilemma be raised according to the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, who permits the sale of a damaged animal, and let the dilemma be raised and according to the opinion of the rabbis who dispute that ruling. The Gemara elaborates, let the dilemma be raised and according to the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, as follows. Perhaps Rabbi Yehuda permits only the sale of a damaged animal, which will never come to be included in the category of an animal that is fit for labor. But with regard to this fattening ox, which if kept for a sufficient amount of time without fattening, will come to be included in the category of an animal that is fit for labor, the sale is prohibited. Or perhaps it may be claimed that even according to the rabbis, they prohibit the sale only there in the case of a damaged animal that ordinarily does not stand ready for slaughter. But in this case of a fattened ox, which ordinarily stands ready for slaughter, even the rabbis permit the sale. The Gemara suggests a proof. Come and hear that which Rav Yehuda says, that Shmuel says. The members of the household of Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi were required to bring as a present for the authorities an ox of a fattener on their festival day. They deprived themselves of 40,000 dinars, i.e., they paid this sum as a bribe to ensure that they would not have to bring it on the actual day of their festival, but rather on the next day. They deprived themselves again, i.e., they paid a further bribe, another 40,000 dinars, to ensure that they would not have to bring it alive, but rather slaughtered. They deprived themselves again and paid yet another bribe of 40,000 dinars to ensure that they would not have to bring it at all. What is the reason that they paid a bribe to evade the responsibility of bringing a fattened ox to the authorities? It is not due to the concern that perhaps they will come to keep the animal until it is fit for labor. No, is it not due to the concern that perhaps they will come to keep the animal until it is fit for labor? The Gemara rejects this proof, and according to your reasoning, what is the reason that they paid a bribe to ensure that they would not have to bring it on the day of the festival, but rather the next day? Rather, it must be explained that Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi wanted to abolish the matter entirely, and he reasoned, it is best to abolish it gradually, little by little, and in this manner they ultimately had no obligation to bring the animal at all. Therefore, no proof can be brought from the incident with regard to the halakha of the sale of a fattened ox. Hair splitting, guys, hair splitting.
Mm-hmm.
It was stated that if a fattened ox is kept for a sufficient amount of time without fattening, it will come to be included in the category of an animal that is fit for labor. Concerning this, the Gemara asks, but even when a fattened ox is kept until it is slim, does it become healthy and able to perform labor? Rav Ashi said that the expert in this matter, Zavida, said to me, we keep a young ox that has been fattened until it is slim, and it performs twice the work of other oxen. Mishnah. One may not sell bears or lions or any
Yep.
item that can cause. Mishnah. One may not sell bears or lions or any item that can cause injury to the public, to Gentiles. One may not build them with a basilica, a tribunal, a stadium, or a platform, but one may build with them small platforms and bathhouses. Even in this case, once he reaches the arched chamber in the bath where the Gentiles put up objects of idol worship, it is prohibited to build it. The Gemara. Rav Hanin bar Rav Hista says that some say Rav Hanan bar Rava says that the Rav says the status of a large beast is like that of small livestock with regard to a spasm, i.e., the symptoms of vitality required at the time of slaughtering. If an animal in danger of dying was slaughtered, but it did not display any spasmodic movement when it was slaughtered, it is not kosher. If it did spasm after being slaughtered, its meat is kosher, but its status is not the same as that of small livestock with regard to its sale. Rather, it is considered like large livestock, and therefore its sale to Gentiles is prohibited. Rav Hanan bar Rava added, this is the statement of Rav, but I say that even with regard to its sale, a large beast is akin to small livestock. Therefore, in a place where the people were accustomed to sell large beasts, one may sell them, and in a place where the people were not accustomed to sell them, one may not sell them. The Gemara raises an objection to Rav's statement. We learned in the Mishnah, one may not sell bears or lions or any item that can cause injury to the public, to Gentiles. The Gemara analyzes the Mishnah. The reason that these beasts cannot be sold to Gentiles is because they can cause injury to the public. It may be inferred from here that another beast which does not cause injury to the public is permitted to be sold to Gentiles. Rabbi Bar Ula says in response, this Mishnah does not pose a problem for Rav, and he holds that it is referring to a damaged lion which is not fit for labor. Rosalie, would you like to take 16b?
Did not know a lion. Sure, did not know that a lion could be used for labor.
Yeah.
16b. And this is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda in the Mishnah of 14b, that it is permitted to sell a gentle, large livestock that are damaged. Yet it is prohibited to sell large, undamaged beasts, just as one may not sell undamaged livestock. Rav Ashi says, it is not necessary to explain that the Mishnah is referring to such a specific case. Rather, an ordinary lion is considered damaged with regard to labor, as lions are not generally used for farm labor. Therefore, there is no concern that a lion will be used to perform prohibited labor on Shabbat. The Gemara raises an objection from the Baraisha. Just as one may not sell large livestock to Gentiles, so too one may not sell large beasts to them. And even in a place where the people were accustomed to sell small livestock to Gentiles, nonetheless, one may not sell large beasts to them. The Gemara concludes, the refutation of the opinion of Reb Hanan bar Rava is a conclusive refutation. I hope I said that right. The Gemara presents a different version of this discussion. Ravina raises a contradiction between the Mishnah here and the Baraisha and resolves the contradiction. We learn in the Mishnah, one may not sell bears or lions or any item that can cause injury to the public to Gentiles. Ravina analyzes the Mishnah. The reason a beast, such as a lion, cannot be sold to Gentiles is that it can cause injury to the public, from which it may be inferred that with regard to another beast which does not cause injury to the public, one may sell it to the Gentiles. And Ravina raises a contradiction from the Baraisha. Just as one may not sell large livestock to Gentiles, so too one may not sell large beasts to them. And even in a place where people who are accustomed to sell small livestock to Gentiles, one may not sell large beasts to them. The Barisha indicates that one may never sell large beasts to the Gentiles, even if it poses no danger to the public. And Ravina resolves that the contradiction between the Mishnah and the Barisha, the ruling of the Mishnah stated with regard to a damaged line, in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. Rav Ashi says that there is a different explanation. An ordinary line is considered damaged with regard to labor. Rav Naaman objects to the inference drawn from the Mishnah. Who will tell us that a lion is considered a large beast? Perhaps it is considered a small beast, in which case it cannot be inferred that the Mishnah permits the sale of large beasts. The Gemara explains. Rav Ashi examined the Mishnah here carefully, and from it he raises a refutation from the opinion of Rav Hanan bar Rava, who permitted the sale of large beasts. We learned in the Mishnah, one may not sell bears or lions or any item that can cause injury to the public to Gentiles. Rav Ashi inferred that the two conclusions from here. First, the reason a beast such as a lion cannot be sold to Gentiles is because it can cause injury to the public, whereas with regard to the beast that does not cause injury to the public, one may sell it to the Gentiles. This inference was cited in contradiction of the opinion of the Rav as explained before. And then Rav Ashi then inferred with the resolution of the Rav's opinion that the reason the Mishnah specifies that one may sell a lion if it does not pose a danger to the public is that an ordinary lion is considered damaged with regard to labor. But a different animal that performs labor may not be sold. This presents a difficulty to the opinion of Rav Hana bar Rava. The Gemara concludes the refutation of the opinion of Rav Hana bar Rava is a conclusive refutation. The Gemara asks, but in any event, what labor can a large beast perform? Why is it necessary to prohibit the sale of large beasts if they are not trained to perform any labor? Abeya said, Mar Yehuda said to me that in the house of Mar Yahani, they grind with the mill with the wild asses, which are considered large beasts. Rabbi Zera said, when we were in the study hall of Rabbi Yehuda, he said to us, learn from me this matter, which I heard from the great man, but I do not know if I heard it from the Rav or from Shmuel. The status of a large beast is like that of small livestock with regard to a spasm, i.e. symptoms of vitality required at the time of slaughtering. Rabbi Zera continued, when I came to the city of Korkonia, I found Rav Haya bar Ashi sitting and saying in the name of Shmuel, the status of a large beast is like that of small livestock with regard to a spasm. I said to myself, one can conclude from here that this was stated in the name of Shmuel. When it came to Surah, I found Rabba bar Yemaya sitting and saying in the name of the Rav, the status of a large beef is like that of a small livestock with regard to a spasm. I said to myself, one can conclude from here that this was stated in the name of the Rav, and it was also stated in the name of Shmuel. Shmuel is Solomon, by the way. When I ascended to there, Eretz Yisrael, I found Rav Asi sitting and saying that Rav Hama bar Gurya says in the name of the Rav, the status of a large beast is like that of small livestock with regard to spasm. I said to him, and doesn't the master hold that the master who is responsible for the dissemination of this halakha is Rabba bar Yamir? Why don't you attribute the statement to him? Rav Asi said to me, black pot, a term of endearment for a scholar who works hard studying Torah. From me and from you, this halakha may be concluded. In other words, our two statements should be combined to form one accurate attribution of the halakha. The Gemara notes that, in fact, this ruling was also stated. Rabbi Zera says that Rav Asi says that Rabba bar Yemeya says that Rav Hama bar Gurya says that Rav says, Yeah, this almost sounds like a game of telephone. The status of a large beast is like that of small livestock with regard to spasm. The Mishnah teaches that one may not build a basilica in conjunction with Gentiles. Rabbi Bar Hana says that Rabbi Yohanan says there are three types of basilicas: those of kings, and those of bathhouses, and those of storehouses. Rava says two of these types are permitted, as they are not used for inflicting the death penalty, and one is prohibited. L'Isur. The mnemonic device for this ruling that Basilica of Kings is prohibited is the verse to bind their kings with chains. Psalms 149:8. And there are those who say that this is what Rava says. All these types of basilicas are permitted. The Gemara asks, how can it be permitted to build any type of basilica? But didn't we learn in the Mishnah, one may not build with them a basilica, a tribunal, excuse me, a stadium, or a platform? The Gemara answers, say that the Mishnah means the following. One may not build in conjunction with the Gentiles a basilica of tribunal, or of a stadium, or of a platform. But it is permitted to build a basilica that is not used for sentencing and inflicting the death penalty. Apropos the above discussion, the Gemara relates incidents involving sages who were sentenced by the ruling authorities. The sages taught when Rabbi Eliezer was arrested and charged with heresy by the authorities, they brought him up to a tribunal to be judged. A certain judicial officer said to him, why should an elder like you engage in these frivolous matters of heresy? Rabbi Eliezer said to him, the judge is trusted by me to rule correctly. That officer thought that Rabbi Eliezer was speaking about him, but in fact, he said this only in reference to his Father in heaven. Rabbi Eliezer meant that he accepted God's judgment, i.e., if he was charged, he must have sinned to God in some manner. The officer said to him, since you put your trust in me, you are acquitted, you are exempt. When Rabbi Eliezer came home, his students entered to console him for being accused of heresy, which he took as a sign of sin, and he did not accept their words of consolation. Rabbi Akiva said to him, my teacher, allow me to say one matter from all of that which you taught me. Rabbi Eliezer said to him, speak. Rabbi Akiva said to him, my teacher, perhaps some statement of heresy came before you, and you derived pleasure from it, and because of this, you were held responsible by heaven. Okay, 17a.
17a. Rabbi Eliezer said to him, Akiva, you are right, as you have reminded me that once I was walking in the upper marketplace of Sippori, and I found a man who was one of the students of Jesus the Nazarene, and his name was Yaakov of Kephar Sekanya. He said to me, it is written in your Torah, you shall not bring the payment to a prostitute, or the price of a dog into the house of the Lord your God. Deuteronomy 23:19. What is the halakha? Is it permitted to make from the payment to a prostitute for services rendered a bathroom for a high priest in the temple? And I said nothing to him in response. He said to me, Jesus the Nazarene taught me the following. It is permitted as derived from the verse, for of the payment to a prostitute she has gathered them, and to the payment to a prostitute they shall return. Micah 1:7. Since the coins came from a place of filth, let them go to a place of filth and be used to build a bathroom. And I derived pleasure from the statement, and due to this I was arrested for heresy by the authorities, because I transgressed that which is written in the Torah, remove your way far from her, and do not come near to the entrance of her house. Proverbs 5:8. Remove your way from her. This is a reference to heresy. And do not come near the entrance of her house. This is a reference to the ruling authority. The Gemara notes, and there are those who say a different interpretation. Remove your way far from her. This is a reference to heresy and the ruling authority. And do not come near to the entrance of her house. This is a reference to a prostitute. And how much distance must one maintain from a prostitute? Rabbi Hiza said, 4 cubits, 4 arms lengths. With regard to the derivation of the verse by Jesus, the Nazarene, the Gemara asks, and what do the sages derive from this phrase, payment to a prostitute? The Gemara answers, they explain it in accordance with the opinion of Rav Hizda. As Rav Hizda says, any prostitute who hires herself out to others for money will become so attached to this practice that ultimately, when others no longer wish to hire her, she will hire others to engage in intercourse with her. As it is stated, and in that you gave payment, and no payment is given to you, therefore you are contrary. That's Ezekiel 16:34. The Gemara comments, and Rav Hizda, who stated above that the Torah requires one to maintain a distance of 4 cubits from the prostitute, disagrees with the opinion of Rabbi Patat. As Rabbi Patat says, the Torah prohibited only intimacy that involves engaging in prohibited sexual relations. As it is stated, none of you shall approach to any that is near of kin to him to uncover their nakedness. Leviticus 18:6. The prohibition against intimacy in the Torah applies exclusively to sexual intercourse, and all other kinds of intimacy that do not include actual intercourse are not included in the prohibition. The Gemara relates, when Ula would come from the study hall, he would kiss his sisters on their hands, and some say on their chests. And the Gemara points out that this action of his disagrees with another ruling that Ula himself issued. As Ula says, mere intimacy with a woman with whom one is prohibited from engaging in sexual intercourse is prohibited due to the maximum, go, go. We say to a Nazirite, go around, but do not come near to the vineyard. Just as a Nazirite is warned not to even come into close proximity of a vineyard, lest he consume the product of the wine, so too one is obligated to distance himself from anyone with whom intercourse is forbidden. I think we could say themselves. Anyone with whom intercourse is forbidden.
Well, the Nazarenes have taken a vow against certain things, and those are part of that vow.
In connection to the earlier mention of heresy and the ruling authorities, the Gemara cites a verse. The horse leash has 2 daughters. Is it leech? The horse leech has 2 daughters. Give,
yes.
Give. Proverbs 30:15. What is meant by give, give? Mara Ukva says, this is the voice of the 2 daughters who cry out from Gehenna due to their suffering, and they are the ones who say in this world, give, give, demanding dues and complete allegiance. And who are they? They are heresy and the ruling authority. There are those who say that Rav Hizda says that Mar Ukva says, the voice of Gehenna cries out and says, bring me 2 daughters who cry and say to the world, give, give. The following verse in Proverbs makes reference to a foreign woman, which according to the sages is a euphemism for heresy. None that go to her return, neither do they attain the paths of life. Proverbs 2:19. The Gemara asks, since those that are drawn to heresy do not return, from where would they attain the path of life? Why is it necessary for the verse to add that they do not attain the paths of life? The Gemara explains that this is what the verse is saying. In general, those who go to her do not return, and even if they return, they do not attain the paths of life, i.e., the pain of their regret will shorten their lives. The Gemara asks, is this to say that anyone who separates himself from heresy and returns from his mistaken ways must die? But what about that woman who came before Rav Hizda to confess to him? And she said to him, the lightest of the light, i.e., the least of the sins that she committed, is that she conceived her younger son from engaging in intercourse with her older son. And Rav Hizda said to her, prepare funeral shrouds for her, i.e., yourself, as you'll certainly die soon. But she did not die. The above incident refutes the claim that anyone who repents for the sin of heresy must die, as from the fact that she said that the lightest of the light of her sins was that she conceived one son from engaging in intercourse with another son. By inference, one can learn that she was also involved in heresy, and yet she did not die. The Gemara answers, this is a case where the woman did not repent properly, and due to that reason, she did not die. There are those who say there's a different version of the objection to the Gemara's statement that those who repent for the sin of heresy must die. Is that to say that if one repents for the sin of heresy, yes, the result is death, whereas if one repents for the sin of forbidden sexual intercourse, he does not die? But what about that woman who came before Rav Hizda to confess to him that, and Rav Hizda said to those present, prepare funeral shrouds for her, and she died? The Gemara answers, from the fact that she said the lightest of the light, by inference one can learn that she was also involved in heresy. The Gemara asks, and is it correct that one who repents of the sin of forbidden sexual intercourse does not die? But isn't it taught in a Bereishah that they said about Rabbi Eleazar ben Duradiah, that he was so promiscuous that he did not leave one prostitute in the world with whom he did not engage in sexual intercourse. Once he heard that there was one prostitute in one of the cities overseas who would take a purse full of dinars as her payment, he took a purse full of dinars and went and crossed 7 rivers to reach her. When they were engaged in the matters to which they were accustomed, a euphemism for intercourse, she passed wind and said, just as this past wind will not return to its place, so too Elazar ben Derudaya will not be accepted in repentance, even if he were to try to repent.
Sorry.
They don't hold nothing back either. The statement deeply shocked Elazar ben Derudaya, and he went and sat between 2 mountains and hills and said, mountains and hills, pray for mercy on my behalf, so that my repentance will be accepted. They said to him, before we pray for mercy on your behalf, we must pray for mercy on our own behalf, as it was stated, for the mountains may depart and the hills be removed. Isaiah 54:10. He said, heaven and earth, pray for mercy on my behalf. They said to him, before we pray for mercy on your behalf, we must pray for mercy on our own behalf, as it is stated, for the heavens shall vanish away like smoke, and the earth shall wax old like a garment. Isaiah 51:6. He said, Sun and moon, pray for mercy on my behalf. They said to him, Before we pray for mercy on your behalf, we must pray for mercy on our own behalf, as it is stated, Then the moon shall be confounded and the sun ashamed. Isaiah 24:23. He said, Stars and constellations, pray for mercy on my behalf. They said to him, Before we pray for mercy on your behalf, we must pray for mercy on our own behalf, as it is stated, and all the hosts of heaven shall molder away. Isaiah 34:4. Eleazar ben Derudiah said, Clearly the matter depends on nothing other than myself. He placed his head between his knees and cried loudly until his soul left his body. A divine voice emerged and said, Rabbi Eleazar ben Derudiah is destined for life in the world to come. The Gemara explains the difficulty presented by this story, and here Eleazar ben Derudiah was guilty of the sin of forbidden sexual intercourse, and yet he died once he repented. The Gemara answers, There too, since he was attached so strongly to the sin, to an extent that transcended the physical temptation he felt, it is similar to heresy, and it had become like a form of idol worship for him. That's key, in my opinion. It became like a form of idol worship. There's so much human weakness, sexuality. That's one terrible weakness in the modern day, especially. Mm-hmm. And yes, it can become a form of idol worship. When Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi heard this story of Eleazar of I've got to get that name, the rhythm. When Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi heard the story of Eleazar ben Derudiah, he wept and said, There was one who acquires his share in the world to come only after many years of toil, and there is one who acquires his share in the world to come in one moment. And Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi further says, Not only are penitents accepted, but they are even called rabbi, as the divine voice referred to Eleazar ben Derudiah as Rabbi Eleazar ben Derudiah. In relation to the issue of distancing oneself from idol worship and prostitution, the Gemara relates, Rabbi Hanina and Rabbi Yonatan were once walking along the road when they came to a certain two paths, one of which branched off toward the entrance of a place of idol worship, and the other one branched off toward the entrance of a brothel. One said to the other, Let us go by the path that leads to the entrance of the place of idol worship. As the inclination to engage in idol worship has been slaughtered, and the temptation to sin in this matter no longer exists. 17b. Rosalie, take it away.
The other said to him, Let us go by the path that leads to the entrance of the brothel and overpower our inclination, and thereby receive a reward. When they arrived there, they saw that the prostitutes yielded before their presence, i.e., they entered the building out of respect for the sages. One said to the other, From where did you know this, that the prostitutes will retreat from us in embarrassment? He said to him, It is written, From lewdness it shall watch over you, discernment shall guard you. Proverbs 2:11. I.e., the Torah will serve as a safeguard against lewdness. The sages said to Rava, What is the meaning of mazima? If we say that is referring to the Torah that will guard you, as it is written, it zima, Leviticus 18:17, and we translate this term as the council of Atzat, the sinners, demonstrating that zima is referred to counsel or wisdom, and the term etzah is also written with regard to the Torah. This also comes forth from the Lord of hosts. Wonderful is his counsel, etzah, and great is his wisdom, Isaiah 28:29. This is difficult. The Gemara explains the difficulty. If so, the verse should have said zima and not mazima. Rather, this is what the verse is saying. From lewd matters, midavar zima, it shall watch over you. The Torah shall guard you, i.e., the term discernment is in reference to the Torah. The Gemara returns to its discussion of the judgments of the sages by the Roman rulers. The sages taught when Rabbi Elazar ben Parada and Rabbi Hanina ben Teradian were arrested by the Romans during the time of the religious persecution of the Jewish people. Rabbi Elazar ben Parada, said to Rabbi Hanina ben Teradian, "Fortunate are you, as you were arrested on one charge only, the teaching of Torah publicly. Woe is to me, as I have been arrested on 5 charges." Rabbi Hanina ben Teradian said to him, "Fortunate are you, as you were arrested on 5 charges, but you will be saved. Woe is to me, as I have been arrested on 1 charge, but I will not be saved. You will be saved because you engaged in Torah study and in the acts of charity, and I engaged in the Torah study alone." Excuse me. The Gemara comments, and this is in accordance with the statement of Rav Huna, as Rav Huna says, anyone who occupies himself with Torah study alone is considered like one who does not have a God, as it is stated. Now, for long reasons, Israel was without one true God, and without a teaching priest, and without the Torah. 2 Chronicles 15:3. What is meant by without a true God? This teaches that anyone who engages in Torah study alone is considered like one who does not have a true God. Gemara asks, and is it true that Rabbi Hanina ben Teradian did not engage in acts of charity? But isn't it taught in the Barisha that Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says a person should not donate his money to the charity purse unless a Torah scholar like Rabbi Hanina ben Teradian is appointed as supervisor over it? The Gemara answers, he was trusted to distribute the charity with honesty and integrity, but he himself did not perform charitable acts. The Gemara asks, but isn't it taught in Barisha that Rabbi Hanina ben Teradian said to Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma, I confess my own coins that I needed for festivities of Purim with the coins of charity, and I distributed them all to the poor at my own expense. How then can it be said that he never engaged in charitable acts? The Gemara responds, he did perform acts of charity, but he did not perform as many acts as he should have in the light of his wealth. The Gemara returns to the description of the trial of the sages. The Romans brought Rabbi Elazar ben Parada for his trial and said, what is the reason that you taught Torah, and what is the reason that you stole? As these were the crimes of which he was accused. Rabbi Elazar ben Parada said to them, if one is an armed robber, he is not a scholar. And if one is a scholar, he is not an armed robber, i.e., I am accused of 2 mutually exclusive crimes. And from the fact that this characterization is not true, one may also conclude that the characterization is also not true. They asked him, but if you do not teach Torah, then what is the reason that they call you rabbi? He answered, I am the master of weavers. In order to ascertain whether Rabbi Elazar ben Parada was in fact an expert weaver, they brought him 2 coils of wool and said to him, which is the warp and which is the woof? The threads used for each differ in their thicknesses and strength and would be immediately recognizable to an expert. A miracle occurred, as a female hornet came and sat on the coil of the warp, and the male hornet came and sat on the coil of the woof. Rabbi Elazar ben Parada said to them, this is a coil of a warp, and this is a coil of a woof. He realized that the male hornet was a sign that the coil was a woof, as the woof is threaded through the warp, and while the warp, which is fixed in the loom and receives the woof, was the one on which the female hornet sat, as a female of the species receives the male. The Roman said to him, and what is the reason that you do not come to the house of Abidan? There there was a gathering place where debates on wisdom and faith were conducted. Rabbi Elazar ben Parada said to them, I was old and feared that perhaps I would be trampled under your feet due to the huge crowds. The Romans said, and until now, how many elders have been trampled there, that you would be worried about such a possibility? The Gemara comments, a miracle occurred, and on that day, one old man was trampled. The Romans asked Rabbi Elazar ben Parada, and what is the reason that you emancipated your slave? Rabbi Elazar ben Parada said to them, this matter never happened. One of them stood to testify against him, and Elijah came disguised as one of the Roman noblemen. And he said to that individual, from the fact that miracles occurred for Rabbi Elazar ben Parada in every other case, in this instance as well, a miracle will occur for him, and that man, i.e. you, is only demonstrating his wickedness, since you cannot succeed your aim and you are merely showing yourself to be desperate to cause harm. But the man paid him no heed, and he stood to say his testimony to them. At the time, there was a written letter that was composed by some of the most important people of the Roman Empire in order to send it to the emperor's court, and they had sent it in the possession of that man, i.e. potential witness. Elijah came and threw it a distance of 400 parsecs. The man went and did not come back, and therefore all the charges against Rabbi Elazar ben Parada were dropped. The Romans brought Rabbi Hanina ben Teradian for judgment, and they said to him, why do you occupy yourself with Torah? Rabbi Hanina ben Teradian said to them, citing a verse, as the Lord my God commanded me, Deuteronomy 4:5. They immediately sentenced him to death by means of burning, and they sentenced his wife to execution by decapitation, and his daughter was condemned to sit in a brothel. The Gemara explains the divine decree that he should receive this punishment. He was sentenced to death by burning, as he would pronounce the ineffable name of God with all of its letters, i.e. as it is spelled. 18a.
This will be our final one for the night.
All right.
The Gemara asks, and how could it be? How could he do that? But didn't we learn in the Mishnah, Sanhedrin 90a, these are the people who have no share in the world to come. One who says that the Torah is not from heaven, or that there is no source from the Torah for the resurrection of the dead. Abba Shul says, also one who pronounces the ineffable name as it is written, with all of its letters, has no share in the world to come. The rabbi answers, Rabbi Hanina ben Teradian did it to teach himself as it is taught in a Bereisha with regard to the prohibition against sorcery, you shall not learn to do, Deuteronomy 18:9. This indicates, but you may learn to understand and to teach. In other words, certain prohibitions do not apply when one is acting only in order to acquire knowledge on the subject. The Gemara asks, rather, what is the reason that he was punished? The Gemara answers, he was punished because he would pronounce the ineffable name of God in public instead of privately. And his wife was condemned to execution by decapitation because she did not protest his doing so. From here, the sages stated, anyone who has the capability to protest effectively the sinful conduct of another and does not protest is punished for that person's sin. The Gemara asks, and why was his daughter condemned to sit in a brothel? And Rabbi Yochanan says, once the daughter of Rabbi Hanina ben Teradian was walking before the nobles of Rome, and they said to each other, how pleasant are the steps of this young woman. Upon hearing this, she immediately took care to keep walking in such a fashion that her steps would continue to be pleasing to them. And this is the same as that which Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish says, what is the meaning of that which is written, the iniquity of my heel encircles me, Psalms 49:6. It means that the sins that a person tramples with one's heel in this world, i.e., dismisses and pays no attention to them as they seem to lack importance. For example, the way that one walks, come and encircle him on the day of judgment. Okay. The Gemara relates, when the three of them went out after being sentenced, they accepted the justice of God's judgment. Rabbi Hanina ben Teradian says, the rock, his work is perfect, for all his ways are justice. Deuteronomy 32:4. And the wife said, the continuation of the verse, a God of faithfulness and without iniquity. His daughter said, great in counsel and mighty in work, whose eyes are upon all the ways of the sons of men, to give every one according to his ways. Jeremiah 32:19. Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi said, how great are these righteous people, that these verses which speak of the acceptance of God's judgment occurred to them at the time of accepting the righteousness of his judgment. The sages taught, when Rabbi Yosei ben Kizma fell ill, Rabbi Hanina ben Teradian went to visit him. Rabbi Yosei ben Kizma said to him, Hanina, my brother, do you not know that this nation has been given rain by a decree from heaven? The proof is that Rome has destroyed God's temple and burned his sanctuary and killed his pious ones and destroyed his best ones, and it still exists. Evidently, all of this is by divine decree, and yet I heard about you that you sit and engage in Torah study and convene assemblies in public and have a Torah scroll placed in your lap, thereby demonstrating complete disregard for the decrees issued by the Romans. Rabbi Hanina ben Teradian said to him, heaven will have mercy and protect me. Rabbi Yosei ben Kizma said to him, I'm saying reasonable matters to you, and you say to me, heaven will have mercy? I wonder if the Romans will not burn both of you and your Torah scroll by fire. Rabbi Hanina ben Teradian said to him, my teacher, what will become of me? Am I destined for life in the world to come? Rabbi Yosei ben Kizma said to him, did any special incident occur to you which might serve as an indication? Rabbi Hanina ben Teradian said to him, I confused my own coins that I needed for the festivities of Purim with coins of charity, and I distributed them to all to the poor at my own expense. Rabbi Yosei ben Kizma said to him, if that is so, may my portion be your portion, and may my lot be your lot. The sages said not even a few days passed before Rabbi Yosei ben Kizma died of his illness, and all the Roman notables went to bury him, and they eulogized him with a great eulogy. And upon their return, they found Rabbi Hanina ben Teradian, who was sitting and engaging in Torah study and convening assemblies in public with a Torah scroll placed in his lap. They brought him to be sentenced and wrapped him in the Torah scroll and encircled him with bundles of branches, and they set fire to it, and they brought tufts of wool and soaked them in water and placed them on his heart, so that his soul would not leave his body quickly, but he would die slowly and painfully. His daughter said to him, Father, must I see you like this? Rabbi Hanina Teradian said to her, If I alone were being burned, it would be difficult for me. But now that I am being burned along with a Torah scroll, he who will seek retribution for the insult according to the Torah scroll will also seek retribution for the insult accorded to me. His students said to him, Our teacher, what do you see? Rabbi Hanina ben Teradian said to them, I see the parchment burning, but its letters are flying into the heavens. They said to him, You too should open your mouth, and the fire will enter you, and you will die quickly. Rabbi Hanina ben Teradian said to them, It is preferable that he who gave me my soul should take it away, and one should not harm oneself to speed his death. The executioner said to him, My teacher, if I increase the flame and take off the tufts of wool from your heart so that you will die sooner and suffer less, will you bring me to the life of the world to come? Rabbi Hanina ben Teradian said to the executioner, Yes. The executioner said, Take an oath for me that what you say is true. Rabbi Hanina ben Teradian took the oath for him, and the executioner immediately increased the flame and took off the tufts of wool from his heart, causing his soul to leave his body quickly. The executioner too leapt and fell into the fire and died. A divine voice emerged and said, Rabbi Hanina ben Teradian and the executioner are destined for life in the world to come. Upon hearing this, Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi wept and said, There is one who requires his share in the world to come in one moment, such as the executioner, and there is one who requires his share in the world to come only after many years of toil, such as Rabbi Hanina ben Teradian. The Gemara relates, Beruria, the wife of Rabbi Meir, was the daughter of Rabbi Hanina ben Teradian. She said to Rabbi Meir, It is a disrespectful matter for me that my sister is sitting in a brothel. You must do something to save her. Rabbi Meir took a vessel full of dinars and went. He said to himself, If no transgression was committed with her, a miracle will be performed for her. If she committed a transgression, no miracle will be performed for her. Rabbi Meir went and dressed as a Roman knight and said to her, Accede my wishes, i.e., engage in intercourse with me. She said to him, I am menstruating and cannot. He said to her, I will wait. She said to him, There are many women in the brothel, and there are many women here who are more beautiful than I. He said to himself, I can conclude from her responses that she did not commit a transgression, and she presumably said this to all who come. Rabbi Meir went, M-E-I-R. Rabbi Meir went over to her guard and said to him, Give her name to me. The guard said to him, I fear that if I do so, I will be punished by the government. Rabbi Meir said to him, Take this vessel full of dinars, give half to the government as a bribe, and half will be for you. The guard said to him, But when the money is finished, what shall I do? Rabbi Meir said to him, God of Meir, answer me, and you will be saved. The guard said to him, And who can say that this is the case, that I will be saved by this utterance? And we'll leave it there. Next week, 18b in Avodah Zarah, tractate Avodah Zarah. 18b.
There's a lot on that. There's a lot to chew on in that session.
Yes, there was. I honestly didn't read forward today, and I was not expecting to see Jesus the Nazarene pop up in the topics. But yeah, this is meaty. This is some meat. Some good meat in this one here. But I think it's about that time we get off the air, and I got to go do my thing. Got to get my stuff together, as I was reminded here. jamestheidolsmasher at gmail.com is my email address. Questions, comments, compliments, complaints, suggestions. Rosalie Jordan, my co-host. Thank you so much, Rosalie.
You're more than welcome.
You're awesome.
Nah.
That's all I'm going to say. Anybody tells you different, they're wrong. Don't listen to them. And for you out there, my favorite viewer, thank you for tuning in. I appreciate you. We'll do this next week, as we do every week, Thursdays, 8 p.m. Central, right here on YouTube. We'll be also at the Idol Smasher on Twitter and the Orphans of Avraham group on Facebook. Till next week, Shabbat Shalom. Thank you for your time. We look forward to hearing from you, and be sure to come back.
Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.